Hey everybody, GL1 here, and I want to talk to you about an adventure that I had years ago with this vehicle. And the adventure has continued into now. So I probably put this car together somewhere around 5 or 6 years ago, and I ran into a problem and had to fix it, and I thought this would be a good time to show you that. Now, the body of this is a Lamborghini Countach, which is one of my favorite cars. And this is not a radio-controlled car. This is an old 1970s or 80s plastic car toy that came with just regular wheels and a metal axle. And if you look, you see these snap-ons here. So that's where the axle went. The front, I took the car apart and I screwed. You see there's a screw actually holding the front. I don't want to take the car completely apart again to do that. But you see this is the old axle, and I'm going to show you how I attached this top of this car to this chassis. Now this chassis went to a New Bright gravedigger, and I used that body actually for something else, but I wanted to use the chassis. I wanted to make an off-road looking Lamborghini Countach. So after having taken the wheels off of this car, I had to find a way to attach it to this chassis. Okay, so what I did is I had these pieces here. I have a lot of random pieces. When you have a whole bunch of radio control cars that are in disrepair and you save all the parts and you kind of remember what you have, what's your inventory, you kind of can figure out, oh, I can do this with this. So these are actually pieces that hold a rear axle, well, like the motor assembly for an RC car, and it allows it to go up with the spring. So if you recognize that, that's sort of one of the holding pieces for that. And then if you look here, you can see underneath, this is where the electronics are for the New Bright car. And here's your little tiny, teeny motor, and your gear is in there, a couple of gears actually. And it does not have limited slip differential or any differential. It's just straight axle all the way through. That's why both wheels turn at the same time. And the way that the electronics are made in these New Bright cars, these really inexpensive ones, is to be plug and play. If something goes wrong, they can just swap it out, or they have a standard chassis and then they just put in different electronics that are more or less powerful based on the size and weight and performance they're looking for the car. And then you have your servo motor. You can see that up here. There's a little tiny motor up there and wires that go to that, and that turns these wheels. And I have another chassis. I'll show you that in detail. All right, so the first thing was getting this. So I had to pop this black plastic off the yellow plastic, and then I screwed down through the yellow plastic into this screw holder that was good for the old gravedigger body. So I screwed right through there because there was nothing to use to hold that axle on, but in the back I could. So I used the original axle that went to this Countach, and I just lined up where I screwed these in so that I could push this through and then push it through where the old axle snapped on. And actually, you can do this by just not even doing it this way. What you can do is, this is actually more difficult. You just go through like this and then find the other side. Whoop, I went too far. All right, and then I have these little rubber stoppers that went to erector set parts. And so that stops this axle from falling out. And then I just snap that on, just push down. And that snaps on. And now you have your off-road Lamborghini Countach. So I had that, all right? But the problem was I couldn't find the remote. Try and try and try. This is a 27 megahertz car. I have a whole bunch of 27 megahertz remotes, and I couldn't find the remote for it. So I'm just checking something real quick. Okay, yeah, so I couldn't find the one that made this car work properly. So I needed different electronics with a remote that would work. Okay, so let me show you what that entailed to make that more clear. So I had another RC car that I had made, another New Bright, and I put on my own body on this, okay? And I was like, well, I don't really care about this car that much. So what I'm going to do, but it worked. I had working electronics and a remote for it. So as I had said, the New Bright chassis are often interchangeable with the electronics. So I unplugged the electronics that were in this car. I also took the front wheels off, and I put those front wheels on this Lamborghini. The Lamborghini had the same wheels in the front that it has in the back, but they're so heavy, it actually was slowing the car down. And these are significantly lighter. You can see actually they're smaller, but not only are they smaller, it's a different kind of rubber. This is a chewier rubber, but it also tends to be heavier. And this is a little bit harder, and it's lighter. And so I was able to just swap the plastic tire off, keep the wheel hub, and just put that plastic because it fits the same size. So I took the electronics out of this. Now the electronics, and I'll show you here. So this is the electronics that was in my Lamborghini that I could not find a remote for. I know it's somewhere, but I just couldn't find it. And it's possible I did find it and the remote doesn't work anymore, and so that could be the problem. But you can see you can plug in right there. So it has a cover, so everything's covered. You see, that's how it looks when you open the car up. It sits in there like that. And here you can see your servo motor. Here's your little servo motor that turns this shaft. So this is good to save this, because if a motor or servo motor burns out, I can take these out and swap it. In fact, this whole axle just pops off with the motor attached, and you can put it on anything else. And the body has a little bit of flexibility, so that's how they give it a little bit of off-road handling capability. But you can see, so these are the wires that run to the motor, and they run that. And so in your electronics, you have your on-off switch, and you have your servo motor attachment, and then your drive motor attachment there, and those just plug in. This ran on a 6-volt battery before, something like this that would snap in there. So one of the problems with these are that they're never very many milliamps, meaning they don't have a lot of electrons stored inside the batteries that come in here, so they don't really run very long. And rechargeable AA's have gotten so much better that, or of course alkalines, but you have to throw them away. But they've gotten so much better that it's better to actually put your own batteries inside your vehicle. So this ran, the old vehicle, this ran on 6 volts, okay? This runs on 7.5 volts. So 4 batteries is 6, another one, 7.5. So it's going to be faster and more powerful now, which is good because that helps make up for the fact that these tires are so heavy and the motor is rather small. And it's not going to be enough to burn that motor out, because I know that because these electronics were in that car and the motors are the same size. Now, sometimes the motors are the same size, but the gears are different. So New Bright they really try to have a product that they can modify very simply and inexpensively, and basically just work on having a style of a car that somebody likes, and it's just a kid RC car anyway. They're not maybe expecting it to high performance vehicle, so they just modify the performance out of that. Now, New Bright does make some really good cars too, though. Not like hobby quality, but just much faster and much higher performance. And eventually, of course, that big giant Gravedigger, that was New Bright, and that was a pretty good performing vehicle. And I have some others that eventually will also make it to you on a show. And I have actually the tip-top ultimate radio-controlled vehicle that I have is a New Bright, and I will show you that eventually too, and kind of soon probably. All right, so now we have our Lamborghini Countach that has 7.5 volts instead of 6, and we have a remote control that works for it, a little tiny remote, and all we have to do is switch that on, and then there you go. And then you have your steering. The steering works. Let me just... All right. So there you go. That's how you repair a New Bright and customize. You can repair it and customize your vehicle. So just thought you might enjoy seeing that. Thanks, and I'll see you soon.